public needs to grasp that. And the industry has a key responsibility to make sure that that happens. Ladies and gentlemen, I could go on, but we're in a serious situation here where 8 presidents, all of them competent people, 8 presidents from Nixon to Obama, and whether you like Democrats or whether you like Republicans is not the point. 8 talented presidents, and you don't get to be president if you're not talented, have promised energy independence, and 8 in a row have failed, and this president will fail too. 19 Congresses have failed to act on the president's commitment to energy independence. We have no plan. We've never had a plan. We built the 20th century energy system, which is the envy of the world. Nobody in the world has created what we created in this country in the 20th century when it comes to energy. The availability, the affordability, the way in which energy has simply been a fabric of our economy, a blanket to keep us warm. It's been a lubricant for all of the economic development and all of the lifestyle choices, as well as the nation's national security for that 100-year period. But the system's old. We're keeping it together with Band-Aids and paper clips, but we don't have a plan to replace it. Different states have different ambitions, Colorado being one of the more proactive states in terms of setting an energy agenda and enabling energy to be developed, the Peons Basin notwithstanding, in terms of oil shale. But as a nation, we've got to come to grips with the fact that our political process doesn't work and the American public is not supportive. And I believe we can do that. Because we will not tolerate the alternative. And along the way, and I'll close on this note, I propose we change forever the governance of energy. If 8 presidents and 19 Congresses can't get their heads around the future of energy, what's to think that the next half a dozen presidents, the next half a dozen Congresses will do any better? Unlikely. I believe it's time to change the governance of energy and take energy policy away from Congress, take energy policy away from the White House, because they don't know what to do with it. And we can't continue on the path that we're on unless we want to live with gas lines, unless we want to live with the prospect of blackouts, particularly on the East Coast, West Coast, and Upper Midwest. And what we need to do, in my judgment, is learn from American history what to do when we have intractable problems in the political process, but yet we need outcomes. What we did in the early 20th century with respect to the monetary system, which had been ungoverned and unmanaged or mismanaged and misgoverned, depending on your point of view, in the 19th century, was Congress, after the U.S. Treasury defaulted not once but twice in the first decade of the 20th century, passed a bill called the Federal Reserve Act. It created an independent regulatory commission called the Federal Reserve. And from 1913 to 2011, yes, with some mistakes along the way, because every human institution is fallible, every human being can make a misjudgment. But there's no question as to the fact of the matter that the Federal Reserve Act, creating the Federal Reserve Bank, and the regional banks that support it, has enabled this country to become the world's largest economy because it has the world's most secure monetary system and it has the world's reserve currency called the dollar. No country in the world has what we have at the level at which it operates. And yes, mistakes have been made, but the Federal Reserve can, by law, ignore Congress, and does. It can, by law, ignore a president, and it does. Jimmy Carter knew that when Paul Volcker was affirmed as chairman of the Federal Reserve during his administration, that could be the end of his administration. Because Paul Volcker was committed to ending the of the late 1970s, and he did. And it cost Jimmy Carter his presidency. But the Federal Reserve has an important duty to the people of America, to the society called America. And that is not to deal with the vagaries and the political flavor of the day, worried about the next election in 2 years or 4 years, but is focused on what needs to be done for the monetary system to benefit the nation and the nation's business and the nation's stability, regardless of the political consequences. I'm suggesting, ladies and gentlemen, and I realize there are Fed anti-fans, people that don't like the concept of the Fed. And Ron Paul is from Texas, and I know what Ron Paul thinks of the Fed. But the fact is, it's there and it works. I'm suggesting the Independent Regulatory Commission model is a necessary step in the nation's history or evolution as it relates to energy. The future of our supply, what kind of energy from what sources, the future of demand relative to the efficiency that we can achieve through technology, tough, hard decisions about technologies in the future, like the perhaps end of the internal combustion engine as one technology improvement, replacing it with better power devices, whether those are batteries or whether those are hydrogen fuel cells. The environmental implications of energy need management outside the political process. And the infrastructure requirements, particularly interstate and regional infrastructure, necessary to move energy from where it's produced to where it's consumed. Congress can't deal with this. The White House can't deal with those four elements: supply, demand, efficiency, and environment. Infrastructure and environment. If they could, they would have. But they can't. I'm suggesting an independent regulatory commission. I call it the Federal Energy Resources Board. Could deal with it. So if we're going to make sense out of the future, it can only happen with available, affordable, and sustainable energy. I'm suggesting we have the solutions, and we live in a country that has more energy than we'll ever need. But we've got to get our heads around that number one issue. The public has to understand what energy means to the nation, and we can all be instruments in that process. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.
John, thank you very much for a very provocative and important message. Any of you who stumbled in here a little groggy, probably your knowledge you've woken up, or you've woken up to a nightmare. And it sounds like perhaps you have if we don't take action. We've got time for some questions.
Direct on real knobs out of this gloomy picture you painted $5.
Natural gas, of course, is a hydrocarbon, and I think natural gas and the resources we have are an extremely important part of the energy future. We have to be allowed to drill for it. The efforts underway within the Environmental Protection Agency currently is a clear effort guided by the White House, guided by other people who advise the White House, to federalize fracking. The industry is at risk of watching the fracking process be taken away from the states and be given to the federal government. The federalizing of fracking will dramatically slow and encumber the development of natural gas. That doesn't mean it's going away. It doesn't mean we won't produce natural gas in great quantities in the future. But if we federalize fracking, we will probably be seeing gas prices double what they are today or higher, because we simply won't be producing it in the volumes with the speed with which the industry otherwise could. So we're going to make it more expensive. We're going to make it less available by virtue of the public's